The WNBA has finally dropped the hammer, and the entire basketball world is in absolute shock. After weeks of controversy, heated sideline exchanges, and a brutal on-court assault that left Caitlin Clark clutching her throat, the league office has finally taken action. But here's the twist, it's not just the opposing players who are getting punished. Two Indiana Fever stars are now facing major consequences for their roles in the drama. First, the incident that started it all. During the Fever's game against the Phoenix Mercury, Clark was hit in the throat by Alyssa Thomas's fist while she was on the ground. The referees called nothing in real time, absolutely nothing. Clark was left bleeding on the floor, and the officials just looked the other way. But the league reviewed it. And they finally did something. Thomas was hit with a retroactive flagrant foul 2 penalty and a 1-game suspension for recklessly making contact with her fist to the throat area of Clark. Fans erupted. Steph White called the treatment absolutely unacceptable. And even Stephen A. Smith weighed in, comparing Clark to Michael Jordan and warning that the WNBA was risking its golden goose. Cunningham's comments went viral. But she also put herself directly in the league's crosshairs. Given that she was already fined $1,500 just last year for criticizing officials on the same podcast, the WNBA was reportedly considering punishing her again. And rumors started swirling that the league was also weighing action against Clark herself for something that happened on the court. So what is the major punishment that everyone is talking about? Did the league finally stand up for Clark? Are the Fever superstars about to be silenced? And what does this mean for Indiana's playoff push? In this video, we're breaking down everything. The assault. The suspension. The podcast rant. The potential fines. And the shocking twist that nobody saw coming. Because this story isn't just about punishment, it's about the future of the WNBA. Let's get into it. The nightmare started on a Wednesday night in Phoenix. The Indiana Fever were locked in a heated battle with the Mercury, and tensions were already sky-high after a chippy game just 2 days earlier. Then came the moment that changed everything. With about 7 minutes left in the second quarter, Caitlin Clark drove to the basket. She lost her balance, tumbling to the floor while trying to make a pass. That's when Phoenix Mercury veteran Alyssa Thomas, a player who should know better, lunged for the loose ball. But Thomas didn't just go for the ball. She jammed her fist directly into Clark's throat. Clark went down hard. She was lying on the floor, clutching her neck. The entire arena could see what had just happened. But the referees? They called nothing. Absolutely nothing. No common foul. No technical. No flagrant. Just silence. And if that wasn't bad enough, things got even worse just seconds later. Clark launched a deep three-pointer, and Mercury forward Valerian Ayayi moved into her landing zone. Clark came down on Ayayi's foot and collapsed onto the court, clutching her back in obvious pain. That play did get a whistle, a standard landing space foul. But the refs declined to upgrade it to a flagrant one. Clark left the game later in the fourth quarter with back pain that would ultimately cause her to miss the next game. The internet exploded. Fever head coach Stephanie White was furious, calling the incidents absolutely unacceptable and demanding that the league protect its players. Stephen A. Smith went on national television and essentially said that the WNBA was destroying its own product by letting Clark get assaulted. And the fan outrage was deafening. The WNBA was caught in a PR nightmare. Would they actually do something? Or would they let the veterans continue to bully the league's biggest star? The clock was ticking. And the league office was under enormous pressure to act. After a thorough review, the WNBA finally issued its verdict. The league announced that Alyssa Thomas had been hit with a flagrant foul 2 penalty and a 1-game suspension for recklessly making contact with her fist to the throat area of Indiana Fever guard Caitlin Clark. The league also fined Thomas $1,000. The statement from the WNBA was clear: Per WNBA rule, the league office has the option, following its review of any game, to reclassify a flagrant foul or to classify as flagrant any foul not called as such during a game and may impose a fine and/or suspension. Fans were divided. Some thought the punishment was too weak, that Thomas should have gotten more than one game for such a dangerous play. Others were just relieved that the league had finally taken some action. But not everyone was happy. Phoenix Mercury head coach Nate Tibbetts publicly criticized the league's process. He said the investigation was not thorough and expressed disappointment that nobody even called to check on Clark or his players. He also suggested that the Fever themselves weren't blameless in the escalating tensions. Meanwhile, Clark was forced to sit out the next game against the Los Angeles Sparks due to her back injury. Coach Stephanie White confirmed the news, saying, "She's okay. She's going to be out on Saturday." No indication on how long she's going to be out. But the controversy was far from over. Because now, someone else was about to come under fire, and it wasn't an opposing player. With Clark injured and the team reeling, Sophie Cunningham stepped up. And she didn't just step up on the court, she stepped up to the microphone. On the latest episode of her Show Me Something podcast, Cunningham went absolutely nuclear on the WNBA. She started by addressing the Thomas incident directly. She admitted that none of the Fever players had seen it happen in real time, and that she was furious about it. "None of our team saw it happen, because I promise you if we would have seen that happen then we would have had her back," Cunningham said. Unfortunately, this type of happens every single game to her, and the league and the refs do absolutely nothing about it. You see the videos of literally kneeing and cheap-shotting Caitlin in the throat. They are definitely targeting her, and the league and the refs do nothing to protect her. But Cunningham didn't stop there. She also went after the league's marketing department, accusing them of failing to promote Clark properly. "It is a joke," Cunningham said. "This is why Kathy, Engelbert, and the WNBA is getting lit up on social media because you are leaving out a generational, the best player to ever go to WNBA, on this roster." She continued, "Honestly, if they were smart, they would market the out of some of us. They don't. That should be Caitlin, that should be Kelsey Mitchell, that should be Aaliyah Boston. Like, why are we putting random players on there? I'm one of them." Cunningham's rant went viral almost immediately. Clark's fans celebrated her outspokenness. But league executives were reportedly furious. They had already been dealing with a PR disaster, and now one of their own players was adding fuel to the fire. And here's the thing, Cunningham had already been fined for criticizing officials on the same podcast just a year earlier. The league had a track record of penalizing her for speaking out. Was she about to get hit with another fine? Or even worse, a suspension? The speculation was intense. And Cunningham herself seemed prepared for the consequences. But she wasn't the only Fever player facing potential punishment. There were also questions about whether Clark herself would be disciplined for something that happened on the court. While Cunningham was making headlines for her comments, Clark was facing a different kind of punishment. Technical fouls have been a major problem for Clark all season. By June 22, she had already accumulated 5 technical fouls, tying her with Angel Reese for the most in the league. And the Fever were terrified that she was going to hit the dreaded 8 tech limit, which triggers an automatic 1-game suspension. Coach Stephanie White had already warned Clark to be more careful. After Clark picked up a technical 4 clapping during the game against the Mercury, White told reporters, "She's gotta be aware, certainly. I think there are some that we could do without, there are some that we can be a little more in control. And so yes, we'll continue to remind her." Clark's 5th technical came during a chaotic sequence that also resulted in technicals for Cunningham, DeWanna Bonner, Alyssa Thomas, and Myisha Hines-Allen. Hines-Allen was ejected after receiving her 2nd tech. But here's the twist, the Fever tried to appeal Clark's technical foul, arguing that she didn't deserve it. The league had to make a decision, and it was unclear whether they would rescind it. If Clark hit 8 technicals, she'd face a suspension. And with the Fever fighting for a playoff spot, that would be devastating. But could the league really punish Clark, their biggest star, while also trying to protect her from the physical abuse she was facing? The situation was complicated. And the rumors were swirling that the league was considering additional major punishment for Clark or Cunningham, or both. So what actually happened? Did the WNBA drop the hammer on Sophie Cunningham for her rant? Did Clark get suspended for her technical fouls? Or did the league finally realize that they needed to protect their biggest star? Here's where things stand. Alyssa Thomas was suspended for 1 game and fined $1,000 for the throat punch on Clark. The 1-game suspension stands. Caitlin Clark was not suspended for her technical fouls. The Fever's appeal of her 5th technical was reportedly successful, keeping her at 4 techs and safely below the 8-tech suspension limit. However, Clark continued to rack up technicals later in the season, and the suspension risk is real. Sophie Cunningham did not receive any additional punishment for her podcast comments, at least not publicly announced. However, given her history of fines for criticizing officials, league sources indicated that her rant put her at risk for another fine. But the bigger story here is the precedent that was set. The WNBA finally took a stand against the physical abuse that Clark has been enduring since she entered the league. They retroactively punished a veteran player for a cheap shot. They acknowledged that Clark needs to be protected. Cunningham's rant, while controversial, also forced the league to confront its own marketing failures. Why was Caitlin Clark, the biggest star in the league, left off a 30th anniversary poster? Why were players like Cunningham being promoted ahead of Clark and other Fever stars? These are questions that the league is still grappling with. And Cunningham, for her part, has made it clear that she's not backing down. She told ESPN that she's not Clark's bodyguard, but she also made it clear that she will always have her teammates back. "I am not the enforcer," Cunningham said. "I am not a bodyguard. I am just going to do whatever the team needs. And if my teammates need me to stick up for them, I will do that." Clark, meanwhile, has continued to focus on basketball. Her back injury eventually healed. She returned to the court and resumed breaking records. And she has continued to be the most exciting player in the league. But the question remains, will the WNBA learn from this moment? Will they protect Clark from the cheap shots? Will they market her properly? Will they support their biggest star instead of trying to hold her back? The answer is still unclear. But one thing is certain, the battle for Caitlin Clark, her safety, her legacy, and her future, is far from over.